joining us for Up and to the Right, our expert Q&A. Today's guest is David Cardiel. He's VP of Demand Generation at Parsley. So Dave, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jen. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So let's get started by tell us a little bit about, who you are, what your role is at Parsley, and what Parsley is as well.
Sure, happy to do that. Well, as mentioned before, Vice President of Demand Generation at Parsley. Been there a whole 3 months now, but what I've been brought in to do is, Parsley is a bit of a later stage organization, really coming into its own when you think about the content analytics space and the importance of measurement there. And so, I've been brought in to help augment that and really build the revenue arm of that from the marketing standpoint. So I've spent the last few months building out, first of all, the technology ability to start doing that. So deploying some programs and such, the operational side of it, and then the development rep side of it. So really kind of in those 3 phases, I've been working on that over the last several months. But a little bit myself, I've been in the Austin tech scene for the last 20 years or so, and I've done the startup game, I've done the enterprise game, and found success in both, found some sorrow in both, a lot of learning experiences along the way, but enjoy it. And really where I do enjoy it is a situation like I'm in now here at Parsley, kind of a little bit of later stage, couple of rounds under their belts, coming to their own, and really, again, like I mentioned before, applying the growth marketing arm of the business to that. A little bit about Parsley though, I mentioned before content analytics, and really what we're doing over here is giving individuals the insights, the measurement aspect and results across an organization for really how their content is performing. We've been giving a lot of tools, I think, in the MarTech space over time to evaluate revenue, to measure revenue and such, but really the growth of revenue, really the application of that data to grow things, and in our case, content performance, the value of content, and really the advocacy of your content. Because right now, hey, we're in this unknown climate. We're all digital. We're competing for eyes on the page. We've got to diversify our content and such, and we're also coming on the end of the year and the start of a new year with new hope and such. And people got to be able to measure the impact of what they did and what they're going to do. So that's what we're doing here at Parsley.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. We could have a whole webinar about content analytics, and we have before. But Today we're going to talk a little more about the demand generation side of things. And well, actually, let's start with that. Since not everyone will be as well versed in this as you are, tell us a little bit. What is demand generation? What do we mean when we talk about that?
Well, what I enjoy about demand generation is I think we finally got a name for, or I got a name for what I do. And I think others in my space would agree with that. And I say that, going back maybe about 10 years ago or so, because it used to just be lead gen, and, marketing was the catch-all for really everything, right? Content generation, public relations, corporate communications, internal communications, graphic design, everything. And the generation of leads was part of that catch-all. Over time, we've been afforded the technology, the research, the science, the science of it and so forth. And it's evolved. And, about 10 years ago, we started seeing folks being called demand gen managers, specialists, executives and such. And I really, what it is in a nutshell is, you think about the focus of targeted marketing programs, right? It's the going after, in the simplest terms, it's driving awareness and interest of your target market, through different means. And what's interesting is that right now we're at a bit of a crossroads from what I'm seeing, is it growing into more of a growth marketing type role. More and more you're seeing growth marketing roles, and not to diminish the role of the CMO, but you have the rise of the CRO now that's becoming more and more evident in organizations. Folks are no longer just saying they're data-driven or revenue-driven. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is and hiring individuals to lead those type of programs, and marketing is following suit in that. But getting kind of back to your question, the role of demand gen has to be around the targeting of your addressable market through a variety of different means, diversification of content, campaigns, doing one-to-many type programs where you're providing air cover or always on programs, to very targeted, ABM or account-based marketing style plays, to reach your target market.
That's great. That's very helpful. So you mentioned a variety of things. We're going to dive into a few of these areas, but in the past few minutes, you've talked about development reps, you've talked about growth marketing, you said CRO. So all of these are pieces I want to talk about. So what's the role of demand generation in the revenue organization? When we think about the full customer life cycle, what's the role of demand in that?
Well, I'll be blunt. I've been thinking about this a lot, probably in the last couple of years, and especially here now in my new role. I identify more now with the CRO, the revenue function of a business, more so than maybe a CMO function, to be perfectly honest. Is everything that myself and my team, everything that we're doing contributing to the bottom line. I mean, everything. I used to not carry a cost per acquisition model around with me, years ago. And more recently in the last, 4 or 5 years, that has become my bread and butter for my organization, is like everything we're doing, all of the fixed costs associated with our organization or our team. That's by, you think about technology, when you think about, whether it's weekly or monthly, yearly spend to help us do our jobs, headcount, any variable costs that we do, that different programs that we run that are maybe seasonal or what have you, that may have different cost amounts along the way. Everything is entered, everything is measured. That's all reverse engineered back from what our true contribution to the business is. If it's generating 3x that, great. If it's not, we need to kind of sit down and reevaluate what we're doing, because we might be pumping too much money into things that just aren't contributing to the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And we've talked a lot about this, the idea of understanding your contribution to revenue, yours being marketing and demand gens. So how does that work? Basically, your job is generating awareness, and then I know in the past there has been some conversation about what actually it is you're bringing in. Are you bringing in leads? Do you prefer to think about, what are you bringing in, and then how does that kind of contribute to revenue down the line? What does that process look like?
Yeah. Well, one thing I don't want to get lost in this is, when I talk about contribution to the business, I'm talking about, we're marketers, we like our funnels. So I'll talk about the funnel for a minute. That funnel has to be end to end. To more often than not, we spin our wheels and spend so much time on the new business part, generating leads, as you say, and just keeping it in simplest terms, generating leads. And people get really excited with, we generated 10,000 leads this month. Awesome. Let's all celebrate and go home. No. That's just getting the process going. So I think the partnership is happening between growth marketing and a revenue operational team or function and organization is, the build out of the workflow for what that lead means. What is a lead? Quite simply. I mean, is it as simple as somebody filling out a form? So it's the evaluation of what that form fill is. And we'll just use that as an example. Can it be qualified in some way, either through an activity-based type model where you're scoring that lead? It needs to meet a certain threshold so that it's sales ready. Or does it go through an XDR type process? When I say XDR, it can be a business development rep, market development rep, sales development rep, whatever you want to call them, a qualification process there, so that it ultimately gets in the hands of a salesperson to go through the buying process. What constitutes, the time frame that all happens, and then ultimately a sale. And can you contribute that sale to that original lead? Ultimately, that's what you're trying to get to. But it doesn't stop there. And this is business 101. I think that does get lost on folks. It gets discussed, but maybe not implemented, is that you actually have the opportunity to make more money on that now that it's an actual customer, because it's easier to actually keep those customers than go get new ones. So I'm seeing organizations do more and more of this, but the investment in the customer marketing piece of this, in partnership with an account manager or an AE that handles both new business and retention, right? Where you're providing the same type of investment and the same type of programs to the customer side of the business in order to achieve both upsell and renewal along the way. So
That's great. And we actually just a couple of weeks ago talked to Azim, who we both know from Trenkai, about
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
side of the business. Once they're a customer, but still very important that we both keep that business and then expand that business. So I love this idea of thinking about the full customer life cycle. So what you're doing isn't just bringing in new customers, but it's, helping keep and grow current customers. The customer marketing piece of this is really important.
Right.
So then, okay, so we know success is contributing to revenue, right? And you mentioned, if we're doing 3x, the cost of our team and our work, then that's great. But how else do you know this is working? What other things do you measure? What are you looking at? How do you know you're being successful besides revenue?
Yeah. Well, first off, revenue is that's usually the key to unlocking, opportunities
Everything.
to do more if you're doing that. So yeah, the metric I like at most is to work backwards from is getting ultimately to what the percentage of business coming in from marketing, whether that's new business or on the retention side. But other ways to measure success is to me is getting into the the data aspect of it, right? Key wins to understanding what is working within the organization, the different channels that you leverage. And when I say channels, you're thinking of things like email, you're thinking things like social media, you're thinking of things like you can look at sales enablement, right? If you're actually working with the sales team, on certain outreach or programs or ABM style plays and so forth, being able to use data, through there's probably sit here and have another webinar on different technologies one can be using, but using the technologies in your stack to actually show the value across the different channels that are working, right? So those are other ways to measure success. Hey, I've had down quarters, I've had down months where the overall percentage is down and we've got our work to do. But sometimes in there can be some silver lining. You can find some, through the use of data, you can find out things like, okay, well, we were down, but we can actually see some inflection points either through paid or through some other key channels. So you use that data, you use your attribution model and you can say, okay, let's maybe kind of take a look at this and, maybe we can see some success, in the coming months because we were actually able to generate some pipeline this month. So.
Mm-hmm. Great. So then you mentioned channels and these pieces, and this is going to vary a lot depending on, what you're selling, who your customer is and all that. But one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, what's the channel we should be doing, or what's the thing that's going to bring in demand? And you and I, for example, have talked about content marketing a lot and how just if you write something good, that doesn't mean somebody's going to come, right? So are there things that have been more successful on the B2B side, channels or tactics or things that you might recommend? Or is it just so completely variable dependent on, your industry and your business, you can't make any kind of recommendations?
Yeah, well, a little of both of what you just you said there. I often, preach diversification of content. We're in such a fast moving society, B2B or otherwise, right? Individuals consume everything in so many different ways. So, we can be completely just have our process tight across the board, a partnership between growth marketing and revenue operations and sales and account management and have it tight. But man, it all comes down to the individual and how they consume what you're doing. Right. So, taking content, for example, there, I've seen the work you're doing here at Gradient Works, right? We're shooting a video right now to talk about this. That's fantastic. You'll put it out there. You're trying to get some views, some eyes on the page. We've got a fantastic newsletter. There's a plug for you that you guys are putting out. I suggest everyone subscribe to. But what you're doing there is diversifying that content in different ways that people like to consume things. An ebook may not suit everybody. A video might not suit everybody, but hey, they love podcasts, right? Or they love just more snackable, 1-minute reads. Just a quick write-up or a blog post, or there's so many different forms. I'm not saying do everything, but I'm saying try a lot. I think that's what organizations need to be doing. And I think they'd be surprised if they kind of, turn that out, in different ways. They'll see some success. And the other thing I'll say there is, you got to build a shelf life into it as well. I'm actually doing this right now because I'm promoting a few things that I promoted a few months ago, just from a demand gen perspective. And I got asked the question, hey, didn't you already do this? I'm like, I did. But did everyone in our addressable market raise their hand when they took a look at this?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no. I mean, there's a reason why, and this is advertising 101. It's just like, it's just like, until you've reached everybody, you just got to keep moving it, keep doing it. So that's one of the other things that we do here as well. So
Mm-hmm. That's great. So kind of going from here and taking a slightly different direction, one of the questions I like to ask about is what are some mistakes that companies can make when they're setting up a demand program, whether you've seen them or not, or just kind of in general? What are some of the mistakes that people can make when doing this, or are there any?
There's definitely mistakes. There's definitely mistakes. I think we've gotten past and sometimes it depends on the size of the organization, maybe the culture of the organization. There's different, it's different for everyone. But I think where companies make mistakes when they think about growth marketing, maybe between growth marketing and is it really a revenue organization, or they've tagged it as it really is the accountability aspect of it. More often than not, I do see that. Well, not more often. I would say it's getting better, but I would say a lot of times I'm seeing, marketers are still maybe saying they're growth marketers or revenue marketers, and they're kind of swinging the brand way. Not saying that's necessarily wrong. That may be, marching to the drumbeat of what the organization wants to do, and so forth. But it's the accountability aspect, and I'm probably swinging the other way when it's like, we're either doing it or we're not. we're either applying revenue to the organization, contributing to the organization, or we're not. And so, another mistake also, I think, is folks do have a tendency to get caught up in some of the vanity metrics of things. As I mentioned before, driving, 10,000 is good for your organization. 10,000 leads into the organization, and everybody pats themselves on the back and go home. Hey, that's good work. I'm not saying it's bad. Believe me, I'm sure my sales organization would love it if we did 10,000 in a month. But are they 10,000 of the right leads? And I think that's not putting the investment and time into the process of what is that lead, how it should be processed, where it should go, how it should be applied, and ultimately, does it qualify as a piece of revenue when it closes or renews? Those are some mistakes that can be made.
That's great. So another thing, one of these questions that we like to ask in this is, if you could, we talk a lot about sales and marketing alignment, in this series, but just kind of across the board, a lot of us in revenue organizations now. So if there was one thing that you would want sales organizations to know, the people who work on sales, leaders and sellers, about the work that you and your team does, what would it be? What would the one thing you'd want sales to know?
I love this question, and yeah, sales and marketing alignment is since I started out, it's just been a topic of discussions. I've been to conferences that have been centered around on it. I've been on webinars and so forth, and I've heard all kinds of tips and tricks. But at the end of the day, for me, it's, hey, we're partners in this. We're partners. But a good marketing organization, and one that I lead my teams on, is that we're listening. We're listening. Hey, we talk to an audience, but you listen to an audience. That's a big one. And, one that I recommend, marketers and most marketers are doing this, but really listen, right? And that's where the partnership can take hold. Hey, a salesperson is moving quick. Time is money, right? And, I think we both know it's hard to implement things like process with a sales organization, technology. So what we're doing as marketing is, as marketers, is we need to listen first and foremost. And then at the end of the day is, just tightening everything up, because what you're trying to do at the end of the day is just get those little bits of information, just enough to get into, whether it's messaging or somewhere, just get into their spiel when they're talking to folks, implementing technology in just the right way and so forth. And then the listening part of it too is also just, something we can get lost into is timing. It's always a thing, don't do things at the end of the month, last week of the month. Really just be cognizant of what their schedules are as well. But at the end of the day, we're all partners. So
That's great. I love that. Sales professionals are on the front lines, right? They're talking
Mhm.
to the customer every single day. So listening to what they're hearing and what they're experiencing is extremely valuable. That's great advice.
Yeah,
I like that.
100%. I've cultivated whole campaigns just listening to salespeople, all right, on just how the conversations are going, right? And I
Hmm.
fixed campaigns, based off that, or eliminated them altogether if it's not working. So
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Well, good. Well, that about wraps us up on time. This has been really exciting and interesting. I love it. Thank you for coming on. But before
yeah.
we go, is there anything coming up from Parsley that you'd like our audience to know about? Any product launches, hiring, anything like that that you wanna share with everybody listening?
Wow, thanks. Another shameless plug, but hey, that's awesome. Appreciate that. Yeah, Parsley, like a lot of organizations, we're coming on the end of the year, but if you're an organization that's struggling to measure the true value of your content, you know, outside of page views, outside of just downloads and so forth, and really want to understand if this is actually making money for your organization, hey, give us a look over at parsley.com. And even if you're feel like you've got a good handle on it, right? I think there's probably some things that we could talk about on our end. So come on over to parsley.com and take a look. And you mentioned talent. Hey, we're like everybody else. We're always taking a look at good talent. So I know it's interesting climate for a lot of folks out there. So give us a look if you're looking for a new gig. So
Absolutely. Great. We'll put some links to this stuff down below or wherever you're listening to us. You'll see links
yeah,
to access all this. So that's great. Well, thank you so much, Cardiel. I really appreciate it. This was wonderful. Thanks for coming on.
really appreciate you having me, Jen.
Thanks. Bye.
All right.